Imagine a city at war. Not with an army, though, with ghosts. We're going to dive into one of the absolute strangest incidents on the U.S. home front during World War II. It was a night when Los Angeles basically declared war on an enemy that, well, might not have even been there at all. So picture this. It's February 25th, 1942, Los Angeles. Air raid sirens are screaming, the entire city is under a blackout, and the sky is just full of searchlights and exploding shells. For hours, the city is a literal war zone. But here's the crazy part. No one was really sure what they were shooting at. Check this out. This is the iconic photo that everyone saw in the Los Angeles Times the next day. You see dozens of searchlight beams all coming together on, well, something. Or maybe on nothing at all. It's an image that just perfectly captures the organized chaos of that night. And we're not talking about a few warning shots here. No, the military response was massive. Over 1,400 anti-aircraft shells were fired into the sky over LA that night. That is an incredible amount of firepower to unleash against a mystery. And that really is the central question, isn't it? Was it a Japanese bombing raid? A single spy plane? Or was it something else entirely? Let's get into it and try to unravel this thing. To really get what happened during the Battle of Los Angeles, you have to understand the vibe on the West Coast in early 1942. You see, this was a population that was just primed for panic. You have to remember, the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor had happened less than 3 months before this. Public outrage and paranoia were at an all-time high, so the idea that Japanese forces could attack the U.S. mainland, that wasn't some far-fetched plot. People thought it was a very real and very imminent possibility. And this fear wasn't just in their heads. Things were escalating quickly. Japanese submarines were actually attacking ships off the coast. Then, get this, just 2 days before the LA incident, a sub surfaced and shelled an oil field near Santa Barbara. The final piece of the puzzle? On the very day of the raid, naval intelligence issued a warning that an attack was expected. The stage was absolutely set for chaos. This quote really just gets to the heart of the psychological state at the time. The attacks, the warnings, the rumors, it all created this profound sense of vulnerability. People weren't just worried, they were terrified that an invasion could start, any minute. So you've got a whole population on edge, and the military on high alert. The smallest spark could ignite a firestorm. And on the night of February 24th, going into the 25th, that is exactly what happened. Okay, so here's how the chaos went down. It all started in the middle of the night. At 2:25 a.m., the sirens start blaring. A total blackout is ordered. Then, a little under an hour later, the guns open up. For over an hour, the city is just rocked by artillery fire. It wasn't until after 7 a.m., almost 5 hours after it all started, that the city finally got the all clear. And tragically, this night of sheer confusion had a very real human cost. 5 civilians died. Not from enemy bombs, because no bombs were ever dropped, but as an indirect result of the chaos that just completely took over the city. I mean, think about that. 3 people were killed in car accidents just trying to navigate the pitch-black streets. 2 others died from heart attacks, the stress of that hour-long bombardment just being too much for them. It's a stark reminder that even a phantom battle can have very, very real victims. So when the sun came up, Los Angeles was left with damaged buildings, frayed nerves, and a ton of questions. And believe it or not, the immediate aftermath was just as confusing as the event itself, with officials offering completely different stories. The official story was anything but clear. On one side, you had the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, basically calling it a false alarm, blaming it on war nerves. But then, on the other side, the Army suggested it could have been a deliberate plot by enemy agents just to cause panic. These conflicting reports from the very top just created this information vacuum. Of course, the press immediately picked up on all this confusion. Editorials were already sensing a cover-up. The official stories just didn't add up, and it felt like the government was hiding something, And that suspicion, well, it only fueled more speculation. And that speculation ran absolutely wild. People were wondering if there was a secret Japanese airbase down in Mexico, or maybe submarines were launching planes right off the coast. Some even floated this conspiracy theory that the government staged the whole thing as an excuse to move defense industries away from the coast. The truth was anybody's guess. So for decades, the true story stayed kind of murky. But with the benefit of hindsight and a lot of declassified reports, we now have a much clearer picture of what actually happened that night. And the answer is, well, simpler. and honestly stranger than a lot of the theories. The absolute key to understanding this entire incident is a concept called war nerves. It's this psychological state where fear and anxiety are so high that people become hyperreactive. Every shadow starts to look like an enemy, and every strange sound feels like an attack. So what was the spark? What kicked this whole thing off? Well, the official history, pieced together after the war, concluded that the initial alarm was probably triggered by a lost meteorological balloon. Yeah, a simple, stray weather balloon just drifting over a city that was gripped by fear. And this quote from the official report explains the chain reaction perfectly. One jittery gun crew sees the balloon, opens fire, and then, as the report says, the air over Los Angeles erupted like a volcano. In the darkness, the exploding shells, lit up by the searchlights, were themselves mistaken for enemy aircraft, which just prompted even more firing. It became this self-sustaining cycle of panic. And let's go back to that famous photo for a second, because in a really bizarre twist, this image has had a whole second life. The original negative was retouched for publication to improve the contrast, which was a pretty common thing to do back then. But that retouching made the bundle of light look more like a solid object, accidentally turning this picture of wartime panic into a centerpiece for UFO conspiracy theories for decades. So, in the end, there was no Japanese attack. There were no enemy planes. It was a perfect storm. You had a population just saturated with very real fear, a simple trigger like a weather balloon, and the inherent chaos of war. Together, they created a battle against ghosts. The Great Los Angeles Air Raid is a fascinating historical footnote, for sure, but it leaves us with this timeless and honestly pretty unsettling question, one that feels even more relevant today in our age of rapid-fire information. In moments of great fear and uncertainty, just how thin is the line that separates legitimate caution from dangerous mass hysteria?